that should bring in everyone who's left us. Just real quickly, we wanted to clear up just a little bit of confusion that may have been caused by those folders that were passed out, okay? Just about in regards to your expectation, our expectation of you for these summer meetings. Those who came through BYU or UVU pre-service, you received these in your hiring interview. That's the papers we're talking about that we just passed out. If you didn't, let us know and we can make a copy of it. But those Wednesday meetings, Sierra, can I see your piece of paper that you asked me about? And that. Okay. So these Wednesday meetings, June 7th, 21st, 28th, 5th, this came from the area when they gave it to us, for full-time teachers. And there's this thing down at the bottom that says optional certification project. You probably don't even know what certification projects are, but they're things that we could do that is almost like a master's degree type thing that's connected to our pay once you're a full-time seminary teacher. So when you complete 12 certification projects, you can get a raise and move to a different lane. And this is an optional certification project. So this doesn't have anything to do with you. And Sierra said, oh, if I can't come, do I still have to do this? You know? And so just so you're aware, I do want to highlight how much of a blessing these classes will be to you, with complete understanding that you may not be able to go to them. But Grant Anderson, he's the Associate Administrator of Seminaries and Institutes, so he's Brother Webb's, I don't even know.
Right-hand man.
Right-hand man, yeah, he is second in command of Seminaries and Institutes. He is an incredible scripture teacher. We got to spend 2 hours with him in 1 Nephi chapter 20 as pre-service trainers. Just look over that chapter and see if you could find 2 hours in there. And it was the most edifying 2 hours. It was awesome. And so they'll be a blessing to you. But we don't, and a great way to use those 160 hours that you've been allotted. But we don't require it. If we don't see you there, we aren't going to be, you know, hey, where was Sergio? I didn't see Sergio here today. Like, we don't keep track of that, but it's a great use of your summer hours. Likewise, not this week, but next week, or not, we have this week, then a week, and then the week after that, most of the areas that you'll be in, I think all 3 of them maybe, are doing their area in-service meetings. Those will also be wonderful and beneficial, but you don't have to feel bad if you have some things going on, classes, work, whatever, and you're not able to make it. But there's some great things in there. Okay, so none of it's required, all of it's encouraged, but when we say that it's encouraged but not required, there's not some weird test we're trying to make you pass to see who's really dedicated. Okay, we understand you have things going on.
For those of you that got invitations, which should have been every one of you, to your honors banquet in your respective areas, your secretary, your area secretaries wanted you to be able to RSVP them, in other words, call them and let them know you will or will not be coming after that dinner. They have to have their count today. So after our meetings today, would you remember to call those secretaries? This is the honors banquet. You have an invitation in your blue folder for them.
If you're in the south area, you have to endure listening to Sister Do speak for an hour and a half.
What if we didn't receive
Call your area secretary.
And we might be able to take a count and get that to them. Is that possible?
Do you want to, that's a good idea, maybe tomorrow
Just
we can do
during our,
that.
yeah, we'll get from you tomorrow, we'll get the time, the banquets are really nice, they'll give you food at this stage in life, it's free food, and it's always really good.
For you and your spouse, or
Or significant other.
Don't look over here.
And even if some of you wanted to pair up in here and sit together, that would be totally fine. So we'll get that count for you tomorrow. But do you understand how we feel about these meetings? Okay? They are a great use of your 160 hours, but they are not required. And definitely that certification on the bottom, you don't even need to look at that. Okay?
So which secretary is this, do we call?
We're just going to take the count by ourselves in here. So we'll have the 3 areas, and we'll find out when the banquets are, retirement banquet and everything like that, and then you can give us a count tomorrow. Some of you can act on faith, maybe, and say yes for 2. You know? And that was my last joke this whole week. Brian was my seminary student, and so I can, you know. Anyway, okay. Anything else that I left out? Do you have any questions about that stuff that you got that's not clarified now?
I was going to ask if the SNI system broadcast is like recorded or any of that.
It will be on LDS.org. Yeah, that's when general authorities speak to us, and those will always be. Like, I think we're invited to go up there this year. Is it our year? That information will be coming, but yeah, it'll be recorded if you're not able to come. Any other questions about those things?
And just define them, just like LDS search, like seven.
Oh, we'll get you the list, yeah. Yeah, and you'll have logins and everything like that to the si.ldschurch.org, and there you open it up, and I guarantee it will be front page news on there. So, any other questions? All right.
All right. So I'm less familiar with this group than Brother Hunt and Brother Martin is, but I know some of you better than others. Can I just introduce myself a little bit to selfishly get myself comfortable with this group? This is my first day in this position, right? I was Timpview Seminary principal on Friday of last week, and now I'm doing pre-service here. So can you try to imagine that you're getting into a new situation, you don't know exactly how it's going to go? Try to imagine that. Right? Visualize that. So, I know, some have better imaginations than others, right? So, it is, this is a new thing for me. But can I just tell you really quick well, I can't tell you my whole pre-service thing, but my early pre-service experience with the practicum. I was at Timpview Seminary, and which ironically I just went back to as the principal many years later, and I walked back into that seminary, and I was remembering that experience in my practicum thinking, I will never become a seminary teacher because of what just happened. Well, so during the practicum, I had this crazy class, and there was one kid in the class that was so fun, so funny. He had some special needs, and during class, he would find tape in the room, and then he would tape himself to the legs of the desk, right? Tape his leg to the desk legs, and he would like blurt out answers and do all these things. I had no idea how to handle him, right? Do you remember Brother Hunt's early experience when he said his wife told him that he saw the students as an obstacle to him getting hired? I was just like, I can't control this class. There's no way I'm going to get hired to do this. Well, back then there was one day when the pre-service guys would come in and observe you teaching. And that class, it was worse than any other day it had ever been. During the hymn, that kid got up and he had a ruler in one hand and a flashlight in the other. He turned off the lights and started leading the music like this. And this is how oblivious I was.
Wow.
I was so nervous that I was like singing the hymn and shaking hands, welcoming the kids. I didn't even notice the lights were off. That's how nervous I was. I mean, there were windows, so we could still see each other. I'm not like groping like something's different, right? But there was some light in the room, and I'd shaken a few hands, and I look up and I see this kid up there. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm dead. So we go up, turn off the lights. I'm like, hey, just leave the music or whatever. That didn't work. But we finished the hymn. Go on with the lesson. It's Old Testament here. And so I go around teaching, like interviewing them like they're the children of Israel. What do you think about Moses and his leadership or whatever, you know? And I had this computer microphone with this long cord. And after I did that, I set it up front. And then we went on to something else. And pretty soon I heard a whipping noise. And I looked over. And that kid had taken the computer microphone and started hitting the kid across the back with it, right? And I was like, not only is the Spirit not here, the kids are not safe in my classroom. And the pre-service guys are sitting in the back. How they're not laughing their heads off, I don't know. But they're back there taking notes. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? You know, just trying to re-gear. Anyway, after that whole experience, I never expected to hear from the seminary and institutes again, but a few weeks later they called and they said, hey, Brother Boyle, we have one class that we'd like you to teach. Would you be available to teach that class? And I was like, they must have mixed me up with somebody else. Okay. You know, so I took that class, went on to start student teaching at Spanish for junior high. And I was still super uptight, super stiff, trying to be everything that I was supposed to be as a seminary teacher. And in that process of being so uptight and stiff and trying to do just what they said, I was not doing just what they said. And I didn't have a connection with the kids, right? They came in, did some student evaluations. This isn't going to go forever, this story. But they came in and did some student evaluations where the students kind of scored me on how well I was doing. And after those student evaluations, a couple more weeks went on, and I was like, you know, this is not even really fun for the kids or for me. And I started to I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to be myself, right? And so I went in and it started to get a lot more lighthearted, a lot more enjoyable as I started to just be me and not try to be somebody who I wasn't, that I thought they were trying to get me to be. Does that make sense? And everything changed. Like, it was enjoyable. I loved those kids. We just had an open atmosphere in there because I wasn't trying to pretend to be somebody I wasn't, and everything changed. Okay, so time goes on. We have a meeting when they gave us back our student evaluations, and they had done them when I was very stiff and uncomfortable in class. They give us back our student evaluations, and this won't happen to you because it's different now, but they used to put it on a scale. Here's the score scale that you need to be on. And if you want to be considered to be hired, you need to be up here in this upper percentage or whatever. And I opened up mine and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. This is not working. And I thought, well, maybe they'll let me redo these student evaluations because I feel like it's different now. Things have changed. So I went up to the pre-service trainer and I said, hey, I won't say his name, but brother, would you let me redo my student evaluations? I really feel like things are a lot better now than they were back then. I was still uncomfortable and stiff and everything. And he said, Tucker, superior teachers are usually superior from the very beginning.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know my visible reaction, but I must have visibly reacted to that spear plunged into my heart, right? And I was like, okay, thank you for that feedback. And as I was about to walk away, he said, and probably because he noticed my reaction, he was like, but if you really want to, I mean, we can have your principal redo those student evaluations and you can send it back in and we'll just see. Okay. And so I did. I asked my principal to redo those student evaluations, and things were much better than they were before because I was me, right? Can I just, in all of these trainings, one thing that I want to help you with is not to make the same mistakes I did. As far as I went into that classroom trying to be somebody who I wasn't, and it wasn't enjoyable for me. And if it wasn't enjoyable for me and it wasn't naturally fitting for me, it wasn't enjoyable for the students, right? In this process, will you just look at it honestly and be yourself? Of course, keep the standards. Hey, myself is, sinner, or whatever that's. Keep the standards, right? But be yourself. And if it's natural and it's comfortable and it's enjoyable for you, it will be the same for the students, right? And so as you're taking these notes and like, okay, I can't do this, I can't, don't see this job as a bunch of can'ts. See it as an opportunity to find out, is this a fit for you? And if it fits, it's a beautiful thing. If it doesn't fit, you don't want to do something for 40 years that you can't be yourself doing. Does that make sense? And that's a little bit of wisdom that I wish I would have had as I started through this process. Fair enough? Okay, as we begin today, we're going to look at this statement here. Can we all read it together?
This teacher seeks to develop and maintain appropriate and supportive relationships with parents, colleagues, ecclesiastical leaders, and people in the community.
Very good. There's a lot in that statement, a lot of angles we can go with that. But let's start with this quote from Elder Oaks. Adam James, could you read that for us, please?
A gospel teacher will never be satisfied with just delivering a message or preaching a sermon. A superior gospel teacher wants to assist in the Lord's work to bring eternal life to his children.
I just noticed a superior gospel teacher will get high scores from the beginning as well, right? So I didn't ever catch that before with this quote. But a superior gospel teacher wants to assist the Lord's work in bringing eternal. What is he saying? A gospel teacher will never be satisfied with just delivering a message or preaching a sermon. He's asking us to look at being a gospel teacher through different eyes, right? What is he asking us to see in our roles as gospel teachers? Please.
It's not about just teaching a lesson and having cool quotes and references and maybe some memes or something like that in there, but it's about changing the lives of whoever we're teaching. It's about wanting them to take that and learn more on their own.
Yeah, beautiful. Please, Jacob.
So instead, just to go along with that, instead of teaching it and moving on to the next lesson, teaching and moving on, after you teach it, to just follow up and really see if they understood, if they got it, and then to see how they're doing in their lives. You're not going to do all that if you're just teaching and then you just keep moving on. Showing you care by verifying that they really understand what you taught.
Great thought. So we're not just delivering a message and saying, okay, we taught 2 Nephi 2, check that box, move on to 2 Nephi 3, right? There's something about follow-up, making sure it's sinking in, it's getting into their lives. I like that. What else? What is he trying to say? What's the bigger role of a gospel teacher that he's trying to help us visualize? Please hear it.
It's actually made me think of the Savior. It was never enough for him just to teach and to preach. But he went as far as to perform the atonement, which of course is the ultimate tool to enable us to change and become better. And so we're not just standing in front of the kids and teaching them some cool facts about the scriptures. We're not just teaching them some stories. We want to get up there and give them the tools that will enable them to use the atonement and understand how to apply it, and then teach them how to continually use those tools throughout their life and in every aspect of their life. So then that takes our love from, here, let me teach you about these amazing stories, to, here, let me teach you about how they apply to you and how you can change entirely because of who they talk about.
Well said. Please, Matthew.
So if somebody were to ask me today how to change, well, let's not give myself away too much. Let's ask, if somebody were to ask me how to rewire my house, I could give you some tools, and I could say I've seen people use this to fix and rewire a house before, but I couldn't actually walk them through the steps of how to go and rewire a house. But if somebody asked me how to work through maybe how to keep a steady and balanced life while being in the university and still going to church and still doing your calming and all this stuff. Because I've lived that, because I've done that very well, and because I understand the principles associated with doing that, I can go and I can teach that person how to do exactly that and to find that. But because I have not lived yet or have not walked through that process myself of rewiring a house, I can't go and I can't teach you that. So a superior gospel teacher a gospel teacher can't walk the students through principles of obedience that they themselves haven't lived up to. You can give them tools, you can say, I've seen other people do this, and this is what it says. But a superior gospel teacher will be able to walk them through that because they themselves are either walking through that right now or they have walked through that themselves. So I'm trying to draw that correlation between what we talked about in living the gospel and being an example through what we're teaching by precept.
Thank you so much. Brother Marty's message has a lot to do with this, right? We're not just delivering a message, we are helping a message get down into their hearts. Please.
Sorry. It just reminds me of when I had my interview with the Area 70, just to see if I was fit to be a seminary teacher, if I got hired. And he asked some really, really questions that made me wonder, do I even know the gospel? Because he was like, if I was a student, how would you respond to this? And then I was like, my wife was there, can you answer that one?
That's a true companion.
But one of the things I love about this, it's not necessarily just about what we're it is about what we're teaching them, but having them recognise that they are sons and daughters of our Father in heaven. And one of the things that he brought up in that message that he was trying to portray to me is how we identify. The world wants us to identify with so much, and there's so much confusion around it. But the one thing that he wanted me to emphasise to the youth is that if they can identify as one thing, that they identify as a disciple of Christ or a son or daughter of God. And I think if they come to, regardless of the things that the world wants to shove in their face, if they are confident that they are a son and daughter of God, a son or daughter of God, or that they're a disciple of Christ, that they're going to walk away from that classroom empowered because they know where they stand with their Father in heaven.
Thank you so much. So gospel teacher is not just a deliverer, right? As we look at this, we're going to look at this, just one of those words jumps out at me. I don't know. It's relationships. That word, we're going to look at relationships a little bit. There's so many different relationships, and honestly, doing what you're about to do, relationships are going to be one of the most rewarding parts of this, right? And we're going to look at a few specific relationships today. But before we get to that, I just want to think of the concept of relationships for a minute. Would you do this little activity in the scriptures? Would you find an example of a relationship that was an effective relationship that advanced the Lord's work in some way? You could go Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, over at Christ, anywhere. But just think of a relationship that because that relationship was there, it facilitated the Lord's work moving forward, right? And then take a couple minutes to find one. Read about it, study about it for a second so that you can answer that next question. Find the relationship first and then take a second to answer that next question. minutes. Find the relationship, what made it effective, what did the partners in the relationship bring to it. I'm just going to have you share with the people at your table in a second. Okay, would you guys just, in your tables, are you close enough that everybody can hear the table probably? Would you just share what relationship did you find, and what did the people contribute to the relationship that made it work? Okay, go ahead.
David's all mad. David's like, we're going
Whoever's at guarantee it for you.
Next 30 seconds,
When they were apart, they still now it doesn't sound like and then he's like,
Okay, wrap it up if you can.
They were together and they were students, but like, are they true? Tie that up.
Let's bring it back. I like watching you guys teach. Like everybody in here like teaches with passion and energy. That's good stuff. So, would you take a second, just one more little discussion segment, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, of all the relationships that you looked at your table, what are the common principles that made those relationships work between them? Maybe come up with 2 or 3 principles that those relationships had in common that made them work. Okay, go ahead. Okay, we could go probably for a long time on this, but can I get a scribe that's willing to present their writing in public? Chris?
Well, after you said the second part, I'm not sure.
All right. Would you just would you just share with us what are the common principles that make relationships effective in the Lord's work? Please, Hannah.
Well, when we talked about in our group was just humility, how much that is required in order to have good relationships and communication.
Excellent. So true, Jacob.
We talked about accountability. When you have relationships, it keeps you accountable. You're not in the dark. You're not alone. Others know how you're acting, what you're doing.
Excellent.
In the examples we talked about, we saw how each member of, or each partner had the other partner's interest in mind.
So it's not self-interested. The other person can see outside of themselves. Grant.
In our examples, we were talking about how both people in the relationship, they were faithful disciples of Jesus Christ, and so as Tyler excellently pointed out, they shared the same vision and goal.
Excellent. Same vision. Queen Lacey.
Love for God.
Excellent.
We talked about trust and how in all the relationships they had to be open to trusting like some, kind of a weird concept, or open to trusting the Lord's guidance. Like both people having to have that trust.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, Josh.
We talked about supporting one another.
Excellent. Mutual support there. Yes, Jordan.
We talked a little bit about like bringing different skills and backgrounds to the table, and so like just having different things to contribute made them a good, made it a healthy relationship.
And that's why we need relationships, right? Because if you both brought the same things to the table, you could do it on your own. Right? Please.
We just mentioned that they put the faith of what they knew was right above the fear of judgment from the other person, even though they loved them.
Can you tell me the story behind that comment?
Yeah, we talked about, so Cameron is a genius, and he came up with this, I don't know if you want to tell it.
Oh, I used the example of Naaman going to Elisha, and I focused in on the relationship between the servants and Naaman. And here's Naaman in a position of authority, and going to, indirectly to Elisha, this also a person in a position of authority, but yet somehow he finds, a lot of these things he must have had between a position of somebody who was inferior to him. Right. That's what made all the difference. So when he was able to, to lower himself and fall before the Lord, so to speak, was when all the difference was made.
Should have read that. Just write what he just said.
Just write everything.
Just write that.
Well, if this helps, the other one was Adam and Eve, and how like Eve might have been. It would have been scary maybe to go to Adam and say like, "Hey, I did this," you know, knowing that like she kind of had this like perspective where she like saw what she was doing, but maybe to him it would have been like, "What did you just do?" But you have to sometimes do that, even when there's someone that you love God and your faith first.
And if there's an existing relationship there, those exchanges are facilitated so much, right? If you
major part with a colleague maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, think
In
of
fact,
Brother,
both of these experiences here,
and Brother Hunt's this morning.
right? But-
Just trust them, love them, encourage them, because they're gonna teach they're teaching the same students you are.
Mhm.
They ain't going anywhere. And they didn't get hired just because, they had a 4.0 GPA. So help them, love them, encourage them. So anyway.
Yeah, you bet. And if you notice, the commonality between this is people started to look at their strengths, right? And see what they brought and had to offer. And, Elder Renman has spoken to us about that recently, of seeing people as God sees them and seeing what they bring and their gifts. There is something beautiful that happens when we see the strengths in our colleagues. My first assignment full-time was at a school called Olympus in Salt Lake. And there were 4 of us on that faculty that were new hires, and then 2 other teachers. And we all went in there, and I was a very unpolished, kind of raw, goofy teacher, right? But I loved those people on my faculty with all of my heart. And the students sensed it. And they would say, I can't wait to get to brother so-and-so's class, or this class over here, because we would talk about each other like that. And had these relationships so that it just felt like Zion there. And it covered a multitude of my teaching sins. Because I had so much love for the people I was working with, and I would go to them for help, and we would laugh together and just love each other, that it invited a spirit to the building, a spirit of learning. Wherever you go, you can learn, right? And there's power in that, in those positive relationships with colleagues. But, like has been brought up, we're all human, right? There's nobody that you're going to teach with that is perfect. And if we can look for strengths and build each other up, it invites the Spirit of the Lord to be there. And it's a beautiful thing. Where are we? Right over here? Ecclesiastical leaders. How can relationships with ecclesiastical leaders help us do the Lord's work?
We talked about a lot of things. This is one that I really didn't think about, but Adam was telling us that he's been in young men's presidencies before, and that seminary teachers have actually reached out to them and said, hey, some kids in your ward are in my class, and they've been able to communicate about that. And so we figured that establishing a relationship with ecclesiastical leaders can really help students bring them to Christ, because number one, when you're reaching out that way, that they know how much you care about them, that you're not just going to do the bare minimum in the classroom, but you're actually caring about their life and doing these other things to know them. And number two, kind of what Sarah was talking about, that when you get to know, because a lot of times ecclesiastical leaders know a lot about their situation, because I've been in ward councils, I know how much information gets passed around in ward councils. And so sometimes things that parents might not share with you, that those leaders can, because they've been able to experience that. They know visiting and home teachers and things like that, and so they can enlighten you on certain situations. And then once we know those situations, that we can then foster what we teach them. I know that a lot of times revelation only comes after information, that you have to study out a certain topic before you can actually receive specific revelation. And so I think that's something too that we discuss as a group, that as you go to those leaders and get that other source of information, that you can then better minister to the students and help them truly understand the gospel in their own perspective. And this situation, or these relationships are important in all situations like we're talking about, but especially for students that are struggling or they need that extra attention. And actions that might help foster this, like Adam kind of was telling us about, they would just start emails, and we talked about how just kind of opening up that relationship in the beginning, before you know who has problems and who doesn't, just saying, hey, I'm the seminary teacher, let me know if there's anything I can do, and I'll let you know if I need any help. So just being able to kind of establish that in the beginning and not being afraid to then email or call or anything like that, just being able to open up and have that.
Thank you so much. So what are some situations in which you will need to contact ecclesiastical leaders? Chris?
Well, I was going to first say knowledge of abuse or anything, but that would also probably involve legal authorities.
For sure. If there's any, what's the phrase? Reason to believe that there's a presence of abuse there's a church help hotline that you should call immediately that is super helpful, and they will give you directions on what to do at that point. Right? Yeah.
I think, sometimes the students will start to feel really comfortable with you as a seminary teacher. They might come to you with a problem that is probably better suited for an ecclesiastical leader, and as opposed to, we were told, stepping into that role and starting to counsel and guide them, to just contact their leader and say, hey, I'm sending so-and-so your way, just so you know X, Y, Z is happening. That's might be one of those situations.
Excellent. In fact, Brother Hunt, can I ask you to share that experience that the student teacher had with a certain student from last term? You know what I'm talking about?
Some of the UVU folks have heard me share it, but we had a young woman, a student teacher who was teaching, and noticed that this young woman in her class just seemed very down, very quieter than usual. And she went to her after class, students were all leaving, and she came to her and just said, you don't seem okay today. Is everything okay? And the girl just burst into tears and confided in her teacher that she had just found out she was pregnant. And her life had just collapsed all around her, and she didn't know what the future would hold for her now, and she had no hope. And
she hadn't told anybody.
She hadn't told anybody. She hadn't told her parents. She hadn't told her bishop. She hadn't told anybody. But she felt that she could tell her teacher that day. That show, and the teacher said it startled her a little bit that she had confided in her, because it's not like they had been really, really close. But the girl needed someone to talk to, and that show of concern came at the moment that the girl just needed to talk to someone. So wisely, our student teacher talked to her about, she found out that she hadn't told anybody yet, and she said, you need the support of your parents. You need the support of your bishop. You need help right now. You don't need to be alone. And so she said, we're going to go into my office, and we're going to make a phone call, and we're going to call your bishop. And the girl said, I can't tell my parents. I can't. And she said, we're going to practice how you are going to tell your parents. And they practiced it, and she helped her get in touch with her bishop. And she told the girl, now, this is an AB schedule, and it's like a Wednesday. And she said, when you come back to class on Friday, tell me how it went with your parents. If you haven't told them, I need to tell them. So I'm going to let you take that opportunity tonight as we've practiced. And I thought she handled it perfectly. She helped the young girl build the confidence to be able to go and do that. And she really blessed her life. She could have unwisely tried to be the parent and tried to be the bishop and tried to drag that out longer, but instead she pushed the girl where the girl didn't want to be pushed, but where she needed to, and I thought she handled it beautifully.
I love that example. Thank you so much. There are some times when kids will just have that feeling of safety in their class, and the Spirit will be prodding them to share something that they've done, and they'll come to you and just spill something that you didn't plan on hearing, and you know that should be something shared with the bishop. And the best thing we can do is what that teacher just did, is facilitate that connection, right? There have been times when I'll say, hey, have you shared this with your bishop? And they'll say, no, I'm not that comfortable with my bishop. But for whatever reason, they felt comfortable sharing it with me, right? And so I'll often say, well, this is something I don't have ecclesiastical authority. I don't have priesthood keys to help you with. Do you mind if I call your bishop? And I'm not going to tell him what you did, but just say that you would like to meet with him. Would that be helpful for you? And sometimes they'll be like, no, I'll call him. And I'll say, can I just ask you next time how that went? And yeah. And so you just facilitate that. Help them get to the right place. Recognize we are not their parents. We are not their ecclesiastical leaders, but we do have a beautiful role where sometimes you're sitting on the front lines of the battle, right? And we can help them. Shad, you had a comment?
Yeah, one thing that I've seen is a huge correlation between students who struggle and parents who struggle. And so sometimes you'll have experiences where you expect a phone call home to be kind of, yeah, how can we help this kid? And there have been a few times where you call and the parent's like, you know what, we'll just take them out. We don't care if they, and you're going, no, like this isn't, I'm not trying to solve the problem in my class. I'm trying to help your kid. And so I've realized there may be some, but there are a good number of parents who struggle in the gospel. There aren't many bishops that struggle in the gospel. And so sometimes even if you're communicating with parents and it comes back where you feel like the encouragement and the things aren't coming as well as you would do as a parent or whatever, it's really good to get the bishop in the loop there so that, there's someone who's encouraging, not just, because some parents will take the attitude like, look, you either need to start going to seminary or we need to get you another class, with no encouragement we really want you to take seminary, but the bishop or young women's or young men's president will provide that. And so that's another time just when you would bring them in is when you sense that the support from home. One time I called the dad and asked him to come in to parent-teacher conferences because his kid was just completely out of control in my class. And all of a sudden I heard this ruckus in the hall. And I was saying goodbye to a lady who had come and visited me, and this person ran her over, pinned her into the wall at Mountain View, and had the kid in a noogie. And it was the kid's father who I had called in to come meet with me, and it answered every question I had. I mean, I just felt like, well, I see what the issue is. Thank you. And in those situations when you sense that, it's so good to get a priest and holder involved and let them know what's going on in seminary so that someone can address it maturely and with a faith-based approach to addressing it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So parents first. We've got 3 minutes. Is it okay if we do the last group? Is that okay? Last group. Matthew?
So we got the toughest one, community leaders, because that's not something you typically think about when you're coming to teach seminary. So we talked a lot about certain people in the community who might have an influence on our students to help them come unto Christ. And the first example that came to mind was a lot of students have a great respect for their coaches, and for people in athletic events, they have a great respect for them. And then that led into the discussion that we often see that sometimes the attitudes of the coaches will reflect in the attitudes of the students. And there have been cases where we've seen that if the coach doesn't really care about seminary or thinks that seminary is a waste of time, that will transmit into the students as well. Whereas you have our colleague who had to leave early, he shared an experience where there was a volleyball coach at one of the schools that he was teaching at that made all of her volleyball students sit in the first row of seminary. They had to be in the first row and they were paying attention. And so that answered the second way, how can people in the community help kids come to Christ? So there's many people in the community that have a great influence on our students. So then the question is, how do we go about reaching out to people like that who are not in that immediate sphere of influence? So there is this quote in the Gospel Teaching and Learning Handbook that says that in addition, so they should listen carefully as students ask questions or share their thoughts, their feelings. This is in addition, teachers might attend performances, athletic contests, or other events where their students are participating, which might give us an opportunity to get to know the coach and kind of familiarize ourselves with them, and maybe even every once in a while invite a coach to come and speak to a class if they have time in their schedule or anything like that. And then a lot of times kids will miss events in seminary to go to athletic contests, and so might tag the coach in or something like that into the makeup email of makeup work for that day or something.
Thank you so much.
So that was the example that could be picked up.
Thank you. And in a community, there's so many different relationships, like a coach or like just people who know you in the community, and then somebody gets into your class, and that relationship that you have positive in the community gets back to that kid. Oh, you have brother or sister so-and-so, and all of a sudden that kid comes walking in like, oh, I'm ready to learn, teach me, right? And relationships, you never know what relationship is going to be used by the Lord to bring people to Christ. Please.
The other thought that I had is that our relationship with the school, whatever school we're attached to, is going to be extremely important. Because if our relationship's not good, then teachers are going to know about it, faculty is going to know about it, and students might kind of find out or kind of get that vibe. And if we're butting heads, then we're not going to be united with them either, and it's going to be harder to teach, harder for the Spirit to be present in our classrooms.
That is so true. Thank you so much, Brother Martin.
You know, it's really important. There's some, the way we refer to the school should be out of respect and assuming the best. And sometimes I've heard in seminary classrooms and things like that, like, well, we know what they teach you over there.
In the great and spacious building.
Yeah.
Sometimes people call the school the great and spacious building.
It's, the hard thing
not
was,
a good
is,
idea for relationships.
this might not a seminary example, but I was sitting there in a high priest group, and the guy teaching is this guy who's a political hobby horse. You know, everything, teaching's Ezra Taft Benson, you read the title, and then you put some political twist about something you've heard from Glenn Beck recently. You know what I mean? kind of a thing. And as he was sitting there talking about Common Core, and this isn't about that, okay? So don't, you know, educate me after. I know what it is and everything like that. But the thing was the way he was talking about it was so, acted as though the teachers were just complete morons, mindless robots, you know? So I sat there and I wrote down the names of the teachers that were just in our stake that I knew. And so I just raised my hand. This is probably passive aggressive and a bad example of other things. But I just said, so how many of you would trust your children to be taught by, you know, these people, regardless of what they were being told to teach the kids? And they were, you know, and I said, we got to be careful because we're referring, these are members of our wards and stakes, and knowing some of the teachers across the building from you and how faithful and wonderful they are, you just want to speak with deference and assuming the best, and even when you hear things that might, because that could really erode if the teachers at this school feel like the seminary teachers are using them as bad examples of saints when they're wonderful saints. Does that make sense? It can make us look like complete pompous jerks, and that spreads sometimes to the culture of the school.
So true. Thank you. Please.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yeah.
So something that you guys can all teach me, but how then do we handle situations with students where the parents are not engaged? They don't care if the student comes. I know that I experienced that. I had a parent who would just write an excused absence for one of my kids all the time. She didn't really care if she was there or not. And I understand, we mentioned bringing up ecclesiastical leaders or talking to their bishop, but how would that work with a parent who doesn't, whether it isn't active or they don't go, like how would that relationship go?
It's a great question. It's a great question. In fact, that happened to me in my first semester of this last school year. There was a girl who started to miss quite a bit. I saw her outside of class and I said, hey, notice you've been missing. She said, yeah, well, my parents don't really care if I come to seminary or not. And I felt that support just wasn't there, right? What do you do in that situation to help bring students in if that parent support is absent, please?
I saw a lot of cases on my mission where you would have teenagers or young adults who were active members of the church and parents were just not involved at all. And in all of those cases that were successful, the support system came from the priesthood leaders and their young men's leaders and then from other members of the ward. And I saw them be able to help give that support where the parents weren't. And so I think then if the parents aren't there, then that second line of defense, your priesthood leaders and their ecclesiastical leaders becomes extremely important. And just letting them know, like, hey, you know, Bishop so-and-so really does not have any support at home, but we really want him at seminary. What can we do together to help him feel support, help him feel like seminary is important?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Both of my parents have been less active since they were about 10 or 11 years old.
very less active. And I can tell you with my experience in seminary with that situation, one very important thing to keep in mind is just because the parents are less active does not mean that responsibility has changed for them. They might not do it the exact perfect way that you want them to, but still contact them. Still say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Is there what are you trying to accomplish? You know, and because we are looking for anything virtuous, you know, good report, praiseworthy, anything like that, and we need to find out what the parents are trying to do with those kids, even if they're less active, and still trying to assist them in their responsibility to bring those children closer to Christ, even though they might not word it that way.
Love that. And in doing that, we're strengthening the parents in expressing that confidence, in letting them lead in that role. It's beautiful. Yes.
I think also just reaching out to other students in the class, because you can see like the relationships and the friends that they have around. And there was one student who kept missing class. Like he'd come every once in a while and then he'd miss for a while. And he sat next to his friend and said, "Where's your friend today?" And he's like, "I don't know, I'll text him." And it just reaching out to the friends they have, because the friends are really that support when there's not family support or anything like that.
There's an incredible power, which we'll talk about in a different training setting. There's an incredible power in students who reach out to students. And peers are so powerful in that setting. So the Lord has given many different relationships to all of us, right? In fact, we could all stop and think back on our lives. What relationships have gotten us to where we're at right now? The answer wouldn't always be parents. Might not be priesthood leaders. Maybe it's peers. Maybe it's a teacher. I know for me, it was a seminary teacher my senior year of high school in Twin Falls, Idaho. And there are relationships that the Lord has in all of our lives that He will work through. And if we can accept that, hey, for every one of His children, the Lord has put people in their lives to help support, not just us, but as Elder Irene said, the Lord has many shepherds out there. And as we improve our relationships and make those strong, the Lord will work through them and bring His kids to Him. And I share that testimony in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. We now have a break.